so that we can finish on time and then maybe have some one-on-one discussion before we round up. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Okay. In the morning session, we're able to look at industries and the environment. And the focus there was to see how industries affect our environment. And we went further to see sustainable practices that industries can adapt in order to minimize that impact on our environment. Because if we don't take care of that, maybe in the long run, we might not even have a safe environment for us to live again. In as much as industrialization is very important, is a key to progress, is a key to development of regions. If we focus on the positive benefits alone and not look at how it is affecting our environment, we'll have problems. I'll look at those aspects in which we'll be able to correct that negative influence on our environment. We went further to look at policies that can encourage environmental sustainability in terms of industrial activities. And we looked at that in detail. We rounded up by looking at contemporary industrial problems, which are not just tied to environmental sustainability, but we also looked at aspects that have relation with sustainable environment. So now we're going to look at Africa in the global industrial system. Africa in the global industrial system. Cost rep, can you hear me? I hope there is no issue. Cost rep.
I can hear you, sir. We can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, we're trying to see our place when it comes to global industrial system, because, we talk about industrialization, the way forward for economic advancement and etc. But when it comes to the global situation, it's as if we are relegated to the background completely. It's as if we don't even have a say when it comes to remanufacturing activities. And there's that notion that we have the potential, we have that potential to sustain economic growth in the coming decades or so, and etc. But even with that, our present situation when it comes to global perspective is not encouraging at all. Even though we hold vast natural resources, in fact, most of the raw materials come out from the African continent. And then apart from that, we have a rapid growing population, youthful population that has the potential to supply all our labor needs. And with that, we are still backward when it comes to industrialization. If you look at the structure of our population, you will understand that we have a broad-based population pyramid, why advanced countries have a narrow base. The implication of that kind of a population pyramid is that we'll have more children, we'll have more youth, and we'll have less adults. That is to say, we'll have a growing population. We have that can provide all our labor needs. Unlike advanced countries whereby they have a narrow base, they have less children, less youth, more of aged people, because if you go, you see more of retirees that are no longer contributing to the labor sector like that. But they are more advanced and they are taking advantage of our population. That is why you see most of our people struggle to get abroad for greener pasture. Some end up in the Mediterranean Sea and etc. It's a major challenge. We have the potentials, but we are not utilizing that potential in terms of our natural resources, in terms of our labor force. It's just technology that is an issue. Maybe do technology, take advantage of technology transfer to see how we can make progress in terms of remanufacturing activities. As it is, it's like comparative advantage have convinced us to remain in the area of extracting industry, mining, agriculture, and etc., just producing raw materials. Why can't we think of transforming these raw materials into finished goods so that we'll be able to contribute effectively in the global landscape of manufacturing activities? If you look at what we contribute in the global manufacturing value added, that is MVA, we contribute between 2 to 3% only. The whole of African continent, which holds a greater percentage of the world's population. Why? It's too poor for us to be contributing that small. Now, apart from that, the continent contributes only 3% of global GDP. Global, that is gross domestic product. Only 3%. While continents, or there are some countries that even contribute more than what we contribute as a continent. It doesn't show progress. It doesn't show that we are utilizing that potentials we'll have to attain greater or sustain economic growth because of what we'll have in the region. Now, the continent is currently transitioning from a primary extracting raw material export model towards building domestic industrial capacity. We're trying to move away from just getting raw materials and then packaging them to export to other countries. Most nations within the continent are trying to see how they can add value to their raw materials. If you are mining lithium, you shouldn't be exporting lithium, but you should be exporting lithium batteries so that you contribute to that value addition process and not just transferring those commodities to other nations for them to add value and then sell back to us. Let me shock you. Do you know that the nation that is a leading producer of cocoa, as in cocoa products that are from cocoa as raw materials, don't have a cocoa plant? Most of the cocoa come from Africa and then Brazil and other continents. But that country has no single cocoa plant. It's a slap on the face of the entire continent because we are not utilizing what we have. We are not transforming our raw materials into either semi-finished products or finished products for either consumption within our country and then export. If you look at what is happening in our crude oil sector, if not for Dangote, all this while, we were mining crude oil to sell to other countries. They will refine and then we'll go there to get selected products. If they tell you the number of products you can get from crude, you'll be surprised. But that is what we are experiencing. And now the continent is trying to move away from that dilemma to see how we can improve in our manufacturing sector by introducing African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, to improve in intra-regional, inter- and intra-regional trade within the continent. But the problem is, even though we're trying to establish free trade, it has been there since 2021, they have not made serious progress, because the challenge is that we are all producing raw materials. We are not adding value. So if you take if you take your cocoa from Nigeria to Ghana, what will happen? Are they going to buy your own cocoa and add to their own cocoa? Or if you take lithium from one country that is producing lithium to another country just in raw form, it will make no meaning. The main thing is for us to move away from extractive raw material export model to building domestic industrial capacity, whereby we'll be processing these things within our country. Now, for us to attain that, we must begin to think in different dimensions. The first dimension is leveraging our mineral resources, and the opportunity of green energy for industrialization. If you look at this dimension, and then the perspective of industrial revolution that happened in Europe and other continents, you observe that they move away from replacing humans with machines, which came with heavy use of fossil fuel, coal to crude to other forms of fossil fuel, which had serious impact on the environment that we are still trying to work on. Now, we are in a position whereby we jump some of the phases that relied so much on fossil fuel to a phase whereby green energy is the in thing. Green energy is the current move now. So instead of trying to go through the phases as Europe and other areas that went through the phases of industrial revolution, we can jump those phases and then take advantage of green energy to have a better industrial production terrain that has minimal impact on the environment. And for us to do that, we should begin to think of decoupling from China. We are over-depending on finished products from China. In fact, we have become the market for that country, China, Japan, and other manufacturing countries that have gone far in the manufacturing area. If we rely on them so much, it will kill our local manufacturing moves or products, because with their low labor cost, migration of industries from other advanced countries to take advantage of cheap labor in such areas, and the final cost of their product is usually low. If we still rely on them, we will not be able to develop inward. In fact, the move could be some level of a closed economy operation, whereby we don't allow, we produce everything within. In fact, it's one of the moves China made, and then took them to where they are now, because it got to a point whereby the government of that region say, if you cannot produce it, then you don't need it. Whatever you need, produce it locally. It was difficult, very painful. At some point, they now moved away from that to this kind of copy and paste technology, whereby just get what advanced nations have produced, dismantle it, study it, and reproduce it in your own model, such that it is cheaper than what they are producing. If you look at the telecommunication use of mobile phones and etc., they have taken over the market completely. Samsung is nowhere to be found. Nokia is nowhere to be found. Most of the early manufacturing industries from the West have been displaced by this move. So we can leverage on such procedure and see how we begin to think of producing what we need. If we cannot produce it, then we don't need it in order to make progress. It will surprise you that we still import toothpick from China. We import matches from China. We import virtually everything. In fact, our textile industries are gone completely because we import cheap produce materials from these countries, and then we are not able to sustain ours. So for us to move away from that position that is not too good, we must think of disassociating ourselves from China and other countries of the Middle East. Think of how we can develop within. Think of how we can set up our own manufacturing process within. Think of transiting from raw materials extraction to processing those raw materials before we'll export them. That will help us in moving away from that argument that the best thing we can do is just extraction industries. Now, our current position is that we are marginalized and we are dependent. We depend on these countries, advanced countries, and emerging economies especially of the Middle East, more than we should. Number one, we are bottom of the value chain when it comes to production. When it comes to we export raw materials and we import finished products. Sometimes the same raw materials, the finished product of the same raw materials will export, will go there to import into our country. And in so doing, even if there are moves to establish industries to produce within, because we are importing, they will not be able to succeed. Now, the next is low manufacturing share. If you look at the entire African continent, we account for less than 15% of the continent's, as in manufacturing, account for just 15% of the continent's GDP, that's gross domestic product. And only 11% of our total employment is within the manufacturing sector. That is not right. Most of the people we find in the service sector are not supposed to be there. Our engineers in the service sector doing what? Mechanical engineers, high-tech trained people, all carrying files from one office to another. It doesn't speak well of this continent. If you go to advanced countries like US, you will discover that majority of their workforce is within the manufacturing sector. That is why if there's any problem with the manufacturing sector, US is on their toe trying to make sure that they tackle that problem. During Obama's regime, Ford was about to retrench half of its workforce. Obama said, no, what is your problem? Is it funds? If it is funds, we're going to make available 50 billion US dollars to Ford so that you will not, and the agreement was that you will not retrench your workers with low interest rate, long-term repayment period. It's like almost 0% interest rate. That alone made Ford to, as in restructure its entire manufacturing outfit, and thereby, by the end of the day, they employed more people. If we think of establishing industries that will absorb most of our workforce, we will not have the kind of unemployment setting or unemployment situation we're having today. Export concentration. We should think of export promotion. We should think of moving away from, think of import substitution or export promotion, whereby we work towards promoting our goods, not just raw materials, but finished, semi or finished products to other. If you look at the indices, Africa is export concentration index is about 0.6 compared to the Middle East of Asia, which is 3.29. The lower the index in terms of figure, the better. And it means we are relying so much on imports than exports. The premature deindustrialization in several regions of Africa is another problem, whereby we instead of commercializing our agriculture from there, building on and down to remanufacturing, it's a step-by-step procedure. Now we are in the extracting sector, so we should be thinking of establishing industries that are tied to what we are producing now. It is from there we'll move away from maybe agricultural commercialization, processing of what we produce by establishing agro-based and agro-allied industries, and then processing our raw materials. From there, we'll begin to go to some high-tech manufacturing industries that don't even have bearing from what we have. So jumping that step will affect the entire African continent. Infrastructure deficit is another, okay, now on key challenges to industrialization within the African continent. We'll talk about infrastructure deficit, financing constraint, capital is a problem, institutional weakness, influenced by conflicts, political instability, coup d'etat everywhere, and etc. And then the last one is skill gap. We're having a serious problem of skill gap because of the kind of educational system we'll have, the kind of training. Everybody wants to have a degree. Everybody wants to be a graduate and etc. But if you look at what is happening, most of the people don't want to go to a polytechnic or monotechnics whereby they'll be given real-time skills that are required in the industrial sector, because maybe the dichotomy between a degree and HND or BSc, HND, and etc. that is going on, where graduates of universities look at graduates of polytechnic as not on the same level. But other nations invest more in specialized technical and vocational skills, whereby you are trained on how to be a best fit for manufacturing activities. Now, drivers of future growth and integration. The AFCFTA, which I mentioned earlier before, which has been in place since 2021, is expected to significantly enhance intra-African trade. Even though it has not produced the required results, there's still hope. If we transit from just raw materials to some finished products, we'll begin to exchange. There will be that regional differentiation. There will be that regional variation in what we produce, not just raw materials, and they will begin to exchange goods with other regions within the African continent. The green energy potential, the move away from fossil fuel to cleaner energy, such as solar, hydro, geothermal, and etc. That is another prospect of future growth and integration. Critical mineral processing. We should begin to think of how to process our minerals and not just like extract crude and then you are facing US, you are facing Europe and other countries or regions of the world. If you mine your crude, refine it within the region, and then meet your domestic consumption needs, and then before you think of supplying it to other countries. Zimbabwe, when they get their lithium, they should have a lithium processing factory whereby that raw lithium is transformed into lithium battery suitable for solar energy, electric cars, and etc. Like what we have in Nigeria, if you go to Nasarawa, we have lithium in abundance in that region, but we don't have a lithium processing factory. We have gold in Zamfara. We don't have gold processing factory. If you look at other nations that are trying to move away from their colonial masters, like the Sahel region, Burkina Faso now has, for everything they mine, they are planning to establish processing factories whereby that mineral is processed within the region. If you don't process within the region, you are exporting as in you are exporting your labor, as in that people that are supposed to be engaged within that sector don't get the jobs. You are exporting your jobs to other countries where you take these things to. If you look at what is happening with Dangote refinery, most of the people engaged in that refinery are Nigerians. And before the establishment of that refinery, those jobs were given to people in other countries. There's report that most of these refineries have established a fold-off plan that in the social years will reduce our production to social capacity down to zero level because of the influence of Dangote's refinery that is established in Nigeria. That is what we should be looking towards for our future growth and progress. Industrial zones and special economic zones, we need to begin to think of working on establishing industrial parks, industrial clusters, or industrial zones. It could be free trade zone or free manufacturing zone to encourage manufacturing activities within our region. Now, before I round up, let's look at this quote by African Development Bank. You see, according to this institution, by 2050, Africa's working age, that is the working age population, will nearly double to 1.56 billion placing it in a critical position to either unlock this potential or face severe economic strain. This assertion or this statement agrees with the ideas of Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx, where they were trying to criticize Thomas Malthus' theory of population growth, where Thomas Malthus' concern was that population increase will be a problem. Population increase will result to famine, will result to catastrophe, natural disaster, and etc. But they were saying no. Population increase is a resource. If properly utilized, it becomes a disaster only when you don't utilize it. So our major challenge now is to utilize this growing working age population. Because if we don't utilize it, it becomes a problem to the entire continent. We are experiencing it already, because you see most of the graduates now are kidnappers. Some of the graduates now are some have joined Yahoo, which is not presenting a good image of the entire continent. But if we work towards utilizing this increasing working age population, we'll tap from that excess labor force and utilize it for our economic growth of this entire continent. I think we'll come to the end of this lecture. Thank you for your hello, sorry, my network disconnected me at some point. So somebody said there's a lithium processing industry in Nasarawa. That is a good one. It's a good move to transiting from just raw materials exporting to a continent that is processing its own raw materials and then export for local consumption and exporting them into the international market. Yes, let me see. Okay. John, is it John or Jonathan? I'm going to unmute you so that you can make your comment. You can drop your question in the chat box. John, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Mine is just a concern. If we talk of industrialization in Nigeria or generally in Africa, you discover that when you start any industry here, my major concern is the issue of legislation. You have to register, and then the issue of tax. You know, government agencies will come against you. The taxes are so plenty. In fact, what you are getting is more than what you are spending on tax. So it becomes a problem. So that is my major concern when you come to industrialization of our resources, or industrialization, using our skills to industrialize our resources. So that is my major concern, Prof. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. It's a good concern. It's a good one, and it's a problem we need to look into, not just in Nigeria, in other African countries. Because if you look at what is going on, you have the issue of multiple taxation, you have the issue of even illegal taxes, which sometimes unduly increase your production cost. And by the time you finish producing your what you are producing, the final price is higher than importing, you see marketers will abandon you and go for what they can make profit from. So it's a good concern. It is something we need to look into. If you look at what the present government of the state did in terms of matching grant, matching grant became a serious problem to a point that most potential industrialists were running away from Benue. In fact, some of the existing industries were running away because you get up today, you see this group, they'll tell you that they are either state youth, they are local youth, or they are community youth, and etc. And what they are looking at, what they are expecting you to settle them is beyond your capacity. And if you don't do that, they will come and vandalize things, put you out of business, and etc. So it's a serious concern. We need to look into that. We need to make the environment so favorable to establishing industries, running industries, to a point that what you are producing, the final price of what you're producing is such that it is not more than importing from other countries. If you see what Inosin is going through, trying to produce cars within the country, you pity him. If you remember the issue he had with, I think, GTB Bank at some point, some political, some business people that are into importation wouldn't want you to take over the market because you're going to affect their business. If you look at what these generators now, if not for some of the companies don't want to stop importing generators, even though there is need for us to move away from these generators that emit a lot of gases into the atmosphere, to solar. There are smaller solar units that you can encourage households to use. That will help in minimizing emission within our environment and so on. So it's a very good concern, and it's something that is happening within our environment. So we just need to either, if you're in position, can make policies that will help in promoting local manufacturing, encouraging infant industries, encouraging small industries. In fact, placing ban on some of the products that are locally produced in order to encourage these people. And then maybe you can come up with policies that will implement tax holidays or tax incentives and etc. to encourage local producers. Thank you very much. Olabi. John, I think, my reaction to your contribution, I think is okay. We'll move to the next person, which is Olabi.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, doctor. That was a nice one. Thanks to everybody. Yeah, my own concern in the aspect of industrialization. Let me start from where the last person talked. In respect to tax, sir, I believe that when you register newly, you are given a period of like 18 months where you don't pay tax.
Okay.
So that you stabilize your that kind of 18 months, you're giving for that kind of 18 months, you don't pay a tax. So that is just like meant for you that to stabilize whatever you are doing. And I mean that the major constraint has to be finance, like you said. I think because starting any kind of industry in our country now has to do with enough of finance. And the value of our money for now is so appalling. So I think that's the major concern. Like sometimes if you even go to the bank, let's commercial bank, that you needed a loan, even what they will ask for you, the kind of interest rate they give to you, and by the time you try to put one or two together, you haven't discovered. Even sometimes by the time you even put your neck, and you see that even the final consumer, for example, in Lagos now, even to some of our common fruits, you saw that some people prefer to have the one they call Kutonu. You see them all this kind of sherry now. Somebody say somebody will not want Nigeria sherry. They prefer Kutonu sherry. I don't know. Somebody say I don't want Nigeria orange. They prefer this kind of a local. I don't know. So even the final consumer, they are not encouraging. I think that, like you said, maybe we need to protect our little SME because they want the little SME that will develop into the enterprises, the industry. Why those one cannot give back? Like I work in a kind of a research institute that we were privileged to train people on our research results, so where they can commercialize it. But sometimes even the cost of training, you train people instead of them to pick up. I'm the one to pick up the research. Some of them they fund to put. Some of them produce that. By the time they run into market, like 3 to 4 months, they're out of system due to the economic and market strategy. just like what you said, we need some kind of a policy that will protect the little SME, so that at least they can encourage others. Then maybe government will also look at a way of funding. Sometimes government fund for agriculture, but they don't follow it. They just use it politically, just the same, at least just share the money for themselves. At the end of it, nothing come out of it. So I think we need to do more on that. The government should at least make funds available, at least maybe the single digits interest rate. Then they monitor, then even the consumer to also encourage people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. I agree with you completely, because is a government policy to give you it's something like tax holiday, a given period of time whereby you are not expected to pay tax, so that you be able to consolidate, you'll be able to grow to a level whereby you'll be able to maybe start paying tax and etc. But the problem sometimes is not even the legal tax. The illegal taxes that are around, that are not even recognized by government, are the ones that are folding up most of the infant industries that want to that are established within our country. And I also agree with you that there's need for government to make funds available. Industrial activities are capital intensive. Sometimes raising funds to establish a reasonable industry is difficult. But if there are financial agencies like Bank of Industry that are there to give capital loans or low interest rate loans to deserving industrialists. I say deserving because sometimes you will notice that the funds are there. People that don't have business with manufacturing or industrial activities are the ones accessing the funds. The manufacturers cannot even access it. And at the end, you'll be surprised that the funds are disbursed and there's no result. So we need to start working on our financial, see how our financial sector can support the industrial sector in order to fully industrialize. Thank you very much. I think somebody talked about in the comments, he said Olam Nigeria had to leave Benue and move to Nasarawa. This was due to taxes. In fact, the Olam thing was pathetic because talks will go to the factories, beat up factory workers and demand that they must pay social amount. This is not in thousands, it's millions of naira. To some point, they had to move away from Benue to Nasarawa, and they are doing, and you know that they are still using farmlands from Benue to produce raw materials, take them to the Olam agro processing industries, process feeds, process rice, and take them back to Benue to sell. Is very, I don't know. So we need to work on that aspect. The current government in power is doing a lot to minimize these multiple taxes, these illegal taxes, and this matching grant, whatever, that was really affecting our region. Ataga, you can maybe ask your question and make your contribution.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for the impactful lecture. Concerning industrialization, like in Africa or particularly in Nigeria, I think another factor we need to consider is public acceptance. Because most of the times you see that we as the public, we prefer foreign goods, we prefer imported goods. So it's a challenge, even if a few people are attempting to create industries, the acceptance needs to be worked on for it to be a success. I think that's a very major issue we also have to look at. I don't know how we can go about that or how it can be achieved, but it's a very major issue that needs to be addressed for industrialization to be a success in our part of the world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for raising that concern. Our taste for foreign-made goods is a major challenge. And in the presentation, I talked about operating either a complete closed economy or some kind of partial closed economy whereby some kind of goods are not allowed into the country. If that happens, then you will protect those industries. The local people will have no, as in the the citizens of that region will have no option but to consume what is available. During Buhari's time, when Buhari wanted to encourage rice farming and rice processing, he said no importation of rice, and then we were surprised to hear the same Nigerians that were not going for local rice were saying that the local rice tastes better, the smells better, is better than foreign rice. And we see, but from the onset, we're not looking at the consumption of local rice. We say it has so much stones. Well, instead of thinking of improving on rice processing technology such that we'll be able to meet the basic needs of the local consumers. Now, nobody think of consuming Uncle Ben's. Nobody think of consuming this royal stallion that were coming from other regions, Thailand, America, and etc. Now, we don't even care where rice comes. As long as there's it's well polished, well processed, we eat it and we say it tastes better than the foreign rice. So there could be policy measures to either protect our local industries by either preventing importation of those commodities into our environment. By so doing, the local consumer will have no option but to consume what is available until we perfect the manufacturing process of that particular commodity. So that, for me, that is the way forward for that kind of situation. Thank you very much. Tachia, is Tachia asking for the second time? Tachia, you can go ahead and ask your question. Atag, I hope
Good afternoon, Prof.
Response to what your question is.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
Good afternoon, Prof. Good afternoon, fellow classmates. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I wanted to make this contribution earlier in our morning session, but unfortunately, power kicked me out. My phone ran down, so I didn't really got the opportunity to make the contribution. I would like to talk a little bit about our contemporary industrial problems. That's what I wanted to say earlier. And since this is like a continuation, the afternoon session, I feel is ideal, and I make my point.
You can go
I would
ahead.
like to, okay, sir. I would like to
be snappy.
Join.
We're running out of time.
Okay, I would like to combine one of the problems, the contemporary problems of industries in our country, which is inconsistent policies with a shortage of capital. And I would like to recall during the time of Goodluck Jonathan, he introduced what we call You Win. Okay. You Win policy that empowered a lot of people. People got finances, capitals, and started businesses. I know for sure there are some persons who are still into business because of that grant that they got from the government. Now, when Buhari came into power, he of course continued the program. He renamed it to You Win Connect, and I can remember very vividly. I was one of the persons who were the last 5,000, selected among the last 5,000 who went for trainings, and after then, were supposed to get grants in millions, of course, to start businesses. For me, that is into construction as an architect, I was actually really hopeful that the money will go a long way in starting up an industry, a company of my own. But unfortunately, after the training, we only got certificates. And from that time to today, it has just been down. So that, of course, let me say the Buhari government wanted to continue the policy, but along the line, it failed. Now, if I got, let me say, if I got that opportunity, that capital, that grant,
It's like we've lost a touch here. Class rep, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, okay, we lost you at some point. maybe you should try and round up so that we maybe take a few others before we conclude the class.
Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to say that inconsistent policies and the shortage of capital, of course, is a very, very big problem in the industrial sector in our country, Nigeria. Thank you so much, sir, for the
Thank you
opportunity.
very much. I think I will just say one or two concerning your submission. There's not really shortage of capital to me. The issue there is that the political will is not always there, because if you initiate a program, there should be a sustainability plan, not just giving people certificate. Those funds should be available so that as soon as you're issuing out certificate, you are giving them knowledge. You should also back it up with the capital where they'll begin to put that into practice. But if you train somebody and they don't have the capital, it's like waste of resources, and without the process of introducing sustainability plan in whatever we do. That is the major challenge we have. Thank you very much. I think let's take Dr. Essien. Dr. Essien, you can now ask your question. Hello. Okay. Vaka. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You can go ahead now.
Good afternoon, sir. And
Afternoon.
my colleagues, thank you for the lecture. I would like to add on. You mentioned something about over dependence on foreign products.
Yes.
And there is what happened last year was soybeans was imported from Brazil to Nigeria last year.
Can you imagine?
And most of the industries felt that the soybeans from there will be of best quality. But unfortunately, the quality was very bad. And because of the importation, the market value in Nigeria was very low. And throughout the last farming season, there was low participation by farmers.
Yeah.
And most of the industries now, because of the importation and the product from Brazil was not good, their profit margin was low, and their profit margin was low, and from our end there was low production from the local farmers, and most of these industries that are running on shortage because soybeans was imported was cultivated in around October, November, and there is serious shortage in the market already. So what I'm trying to say is when importation destroy the morale of the local producer, and if government policies cannot curtail this, I think it will affect other products also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that contribution. What you're saying is correct. Farmers respond to farmers respond to the market. If prices of a particular maybe agricultural produce drops, farmers will abandon it and move to where the market is. If you see what is happening with the current prices of agricultural produce, next year there will be serious increase in prices of commodities, because like take for instance cassava now. A lot of farmers will not farm cassava because the prices are so low, and it's going to affect their farming, the next year's farming plan. So what you're saying is correct. Any other question? If you cannot, maybe you're having network problem, just drop your question or your comment or your contributions into the chat box so that we'll try and round up. And then let's hear this. ACN, you can now.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Good afternoon, Prof. And good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, colleagues. Okay, please. I have my concern is on the issue of enforcement of these environmental laws or environmental sustainability laws, because I've had a lot of experiences that are owned by the political class. Even when you go for audit or inspection, they will deny you of entry and demand that you get through the owner of the investment before you assess, the facility for either audit or inspection. So as such, it's very, very difficult for us to really practice, even when we know what to do. But at the point, you cannot really do in some places because, like, the owner is in the government. There was a time I also confronted a fire service man, now asking, why do you approve a fuel station in between houses within the residential environment? And he said similar thing. They said, sir, whether I approve or not, that place is owned by a political class. So whether I approve or not, they will still build it. So as such, if I go there, they find me something, I will call it, because if I say I'm not approving, they will still build it. Is there no way that we can make this regulator independent? Because a lot of them are working, in the private sector, but most of these regulators also are working in the government. And because they are working in the government,
Okay, thank you very much. We cannot hear you again, but I think you have made your point. I think we discussed that aspect in our earlier lectures. That is the morning session extensively. Maybe I'll just give you
they
one.
might be victimized if they go ahead to be independent.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is the last question we're going to take. If you have any concern, just drop it. Okay, just drop it here in the chat box. Maybe as we are rounding up, giving instruction, then we'll look at it briefly before we go. I'll give you an example. If you look at the Shafa filling station in Wurukum, when that filling station was, I think they were about to establish that filling station, environmentalists, people from lands, people from urban development and etc. said it was not in the right place. How do you establish a high risk venture within high populated areas with high level of commercial activities right at the roundabout? Now they are constructing a flyover. I don't know how they're going to handle that. The flyover there with the filling station by its side, and it won't cause problem. Just imagine there's a fire disaster in that place. There'll be serious problem. There'll be a lot of casualties within the environment because of it's a densely populated area with high level commercial activities and etc. So, people in power don't care whether you know the right thing to do or not. What they want. If they want it, and they're in government, they go ahead and approve it, and you'll not be with your professional experience and professional knowledge, you will not be able to stop them from what they are doing. But all I'm going to say is that let's just do our part and see how with time we improve awareness and then we improve the entire environment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think our time is up, so we'll just try and round up. Maybe some of the questions will be taken maybe when we'll have a revision. If they are concerned, you note them down. When we come together in the interactive session, you can present your question. Once again, thank you very much for being available throughout this week. from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then no, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Today is Friday. We're rounding up this week's lecture, and I wish you fruitful engagement in your subsequent lectures. And then at the end of the day,
Thank you so much, Prof.
see how you
Thank you,
do
Prof.
better in the area of
Thank you, sir.
environmental
God bless you.
sustainability.
Happy weekend, sir.
See you in revision week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, sir.
Class rep, I'm going
Appreciate.
to send my material to you, then you share it with the class. I think there's no problem with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Prof.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Class
Bash.
rep.
Thank you.
Class rep, please.
Yes.
Sorry, please. Oh, this revision week, are we coming to Makurdi physically?
Ask the question on the group. We'll discuss that on the group.
Okay, okay.
We'll discuss that on the group. But if you don't come physically, how do you write exam? Exam is not online, it's physical, right?
Revision. I'm talking about revision.
Revision talk.
Yeah.
Discuss
Let's
this with
discuss that on the group.
your people in charge of admin and things like that. Dr. Bashir. Dr. Bashir, do you have anything to say before we round up? Okay, I saw Bashir. I was thinking maybe you have one or two things to say.